Obeisances. Namaha, respectful obeisances. Namaha, obeisances. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhakti Swami, Srila Prabhupada Ki. Translation. Let me therefore offer my respectful obeisances unto the Lord, who has become the son of Vasudeva, the pleasure of Devaki, the boy of Nanda, and the other cowherd men of Vrindavan, and the enlivener of the cows and the senses. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The Lord, being thus unapproachable by any material assets, out of unbounded and causeless mercy, descends on the earth as He is in order to show His special mercy upon His unalloyed devotees and to diminish the upsurges of the demoniac persons. I'll read that lengthy sentence again. The Lord, being thus unapproachable by any material assets, out of unbounded and causeless mercy descends on the earth as He is in order to show His special mercy upon His unalloyed devotees and to diminish the upsurges of the demoniac persons. Queen Kunti specifically adores the incarnation or descent of Lord Krishna above all other incarnations, because in this particular incarnation He is more approachable. In the Rama incarnation, He remained a king's son from his very childhood. But in the incarnation of Krishna, although he was the son of a king, he at once left the shelter of his real father and mother, King Vasudeva and Queen Devaki, just after his appearance, and went to the lap of Yasodamayi to play the part of an ordinary coward boy in the blessed Vrajabhumi, which is very sanctified because of his childhood pastimes. Therefore, Lord Krishna is more merciful than Lord Rama. He was undoubtedly very kind to Kunti's brother Vasudeva and his family. Had he not become the son of Vasudeva and Devaki, Queen Kunti could not claim him to be her nephew and thus address Krishna in parental affection. But Nanda and Yasoda are more fortunate because they could relish the Lord's childhood pastimes, which are more attractive than all other pastimes. There is no parallel to His childhood pastimes as exhibited at Vrajabhumi, which are the prototypes of His eternal affairs in the original Krishna Loka, described as Chintamani Dham in the Brahma Samhita. Lord Sri Krishna descended Himself as Vrajabhumi with all His transcendental entourage and paraphernalia. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu therefore confirmed that no one is as fortunate as the residents of Vrajabhumi, and specifically the cowherd girls who dedicated their everything for the satisfaction of the Lord. his pastimes with Nanda and Yasoda, and his pastimes with the cowherd men, and especially with the cowherd boys and the cows, have caused him to be known as Govinda. Lord Krishna as Govinda is more inclined to the brahmanas and the cows, indicating thereby that human prosperity depends more on these two items, namely Brahmanical culture and cow protection. Lord Krishna is never satisfied where these are lacking. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Ajnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanabhyo Vaishnavabhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shrivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Srila Prabhupada was being interviewed on television in the United States of America in the early 70s. And the interviewer asked Srila Prabhupada, "Who is God?" And then Srila Prabhupada curtly replied, "Krishna is God." So then Srila Prabhupada was waiting for the interviewer to ask the next question. But he was stumped. Just one line, "Krishna is God." So the interviewer couldn't go further. Because the interviewer asked the question, "Who is God?" And that's the general post that people speak about. God. If you have any difficulty, pray to God. If you have any problems, pray to God. If you need your material desires fulfilled, pray to God. God, God, God. See? After some moments, which seems a little long time when you interview people on television, then the interviewer asked Srila Prabhupada, "Who is Krishna?" Because first he asked, "Who is God?" Then Prabhupada said, "Krishna is God." Then he got the word Krishna. Yeah. It's a type of initiation. It's a type of diksha. So when Srila Prabhupada mentions the name Krishna, it is quite different from normal people mentioning the name Krishna. See? So when the interviewer asked, "Who is God?" Prabhupada said, "Krishna is God." And then he got stumped. And then he asked, "Who is Krishna?" See? Then Prabhupada said, "God is Krishna." And then the interviewer said, really? Yes. See? So Srila Prabhupada here reciprocates with the consciousness of the person that it has limitations on what he or she knows. Srila Prabhupada is not just a perfect preacher, he's more than that. When Srila Prabhupada says the word Krishna, it enters the person's heart. It's not like sometimes somebody may say, who took birth in Bharatavash, India, do you know Krishna? Oh yeah, I know Krishna from birth. I know Krishna from birth. But when they say like that, I know Krishna from birth, it doesn't have that kind of spiritual potency for others to inquire who is Krishna. See? So when we hear Srila Prabhupada's lectures, and when we read Srila Prabhupada's books, there's an absolute Shakti, there's an absolute potency that can actually immediately enter the heart. See? So this particular interviewer was inquiring very innocently, and he had a lot of other questions after that, because he did his homework on Srila Prabhupada. See? But we should know that the purity, which Prabhupada says, the purity is the force, is unknowing to the person who possesses such purity. See? So therefore, purity is the force indicates that we have to have the force to see the purity in others. Not that we see purity in ourselves. See? So when Srila Prabhupada said, Krishna is God, when he asked who is God, immediately Srila Prabhupada could identify there is a potential devotee here. There is a potential devotee. And he could see the purity of somebody who's completely innocent in his ignorance, the interviewer, and give that and bring out his purity. Or then, who is Krishna? Yes. And then he mentions the name Krishna. He mentions the name Krishna. Why? Because Srila Prabhupada has given him Krishna. It's a type of diksha. Now, it is very clear from Queen Kunti's nice description and so forth, that this particular personality, Krishna, is Nandanayacha. Nandanayacha. And then Srila Prabhupada says in the translation, and Krishna is the boy of Nanda. Is the boy of Nanda. So that indicates that Krishna is not God. Krishna is not God. He is the boy of Nanda. Nandanayacha. Gopakumara. Coward boy of Nanda. But for persons who are innocent in their ignorance, like this television interviewer, he wouldn't understand that that the source of the position of God, because he uses the word God, is a coward boy. Prabhupada cannot explain that at that time, relative to the person's innocence in one's ignorance. Prabhupada cannot really explain it. See? So therefore, it is most important to know that Krishna is the source of the position of God, who is Narayan or Vishnu. See? So another time, Srila Prabhupada was on an airplane, and you get the pilot of the airplane, the captain, and you get the first officer, they call them, which is the assistant captain, so to speak. Yeah. So the captain somehow was a little late to enter the plane, the aeroplane, and the first officer was already in the cockpit, getting the plane ready and starting up the engines and so forth. So he was walking behind Srila Prabhupada, and he could see that Srila Prabhupada was accompanied by American-bodied servants that are even taller than him. See? Srila Prabhupada's personal servant and his secretary and one other devotee. Yeah. So he was intrigued, and when Srila Prabhupada walked into the airplane, they saw how these three American-bodied, sometimes like Brahmananda Swami, that big, they're looking down at him, and he's very aristocratic Prabhupada. Like that. So they placed Srila Prabhupada on the seat. Srila Prabhupada was sitting on the window seat, and one of his assistants, devotees, was sitting next to him. So the captain came in and he noticed that this is not an ordinary human being. So he went into the cockpit, and plane took off, and it was on cruise mode, automatic pilot. So he left the cockpit and he came into the cabin, on the passenger seat. And he said to one of the American-bodied servants, "Can I speak to him?" So then they said yes. Prabhupada knew he was the captain. He said, "I'm very intrigued. I come from Christian background, and we believe in God, and we also believe that there's Satan. Satan means evil. There's good and evil." Yeah. So Srila Prabhupada, without any compromise, in other words, he was inquiring why this is like that, good and evil. Yeah. So Srila Prabhupada immediately said, "Janmadi asya yataha." So the captain, he said, "That sounds deep, deep." He said, "Can you explain?" Prabhupada said, "Oh yes, oh yes." He said, "Everything emanates from God." And he used the word God again. Everything emanates from God. See? Then the captain, he is very intelligent, super intelligent man. So the captain said, "Oh, you mean that if everything emanates from God and you said something?" Prabhupada said, "Yes, janmadi asya yataha, janmadi asya yataha." See? Yeah. You mean if everything comes from God, then it must be that evil or Satan also comes from God. See? In other words, he is asking a very intelligent question. Like that. See? Then Srila Prabhupada answered him by asking him a question. Such a deep truth, but in such a simple way that he could penetrate people's hearts immediately. That kind of potency is amazing. I mean, he penetrated all of our hearts. So Srila Prabhupada asked him, the captain, he said that, is there any darkness in the sun? And the captain immediately understood the answer. Is there any darkness in the sun? See? So in other words, Prabhupada is saying, evil is the absence of the presence of God. Is there any darkness in the sun? Perfect answer. See? And then Prabhupada said, Krishna Surya Sama Maya Haya Andhaka. Is there any darkness in the sun? Now we could translate that different, but he said the same verse, Is there any darkness in the sun? And then this captain, this man is he's definitely not a normal human being. Again. Then after the captain left, Srila Prabhupada's disciples were amazed. Wow. Srila Prabhupada. Then Srila Prabhupada said something like, for me, all this is common sense. All this is common sense. So therefore we have to teach people common sense. Yes. Then one disciple was there, he said, Srila Prabhupada, we really didn't have any common sense ourselves. Srila Prabhupada said, yes, that is true. Very nice exchange, yeah. Then the captain, by his consciousness, coming and, inciting Srila Prabhupada's transcendental consciousness to preach. So he left, so Prabhupada continued. And then Srila Prabhupada said, Satyam Param Dhimahi. That Krishna is not God. Krishna is not God. Krishna is the supreme absolute truth. Krishna is the supreme absolute. Therefore, Janmadi Asya Yataha. It's the first verse of Bhagavatam. The beginning words are Janmadi Asya Yatonvayat Itarachas Chachesu Abhigyana Swarat. And the last words are Satyam Param Dhimahi. Okay. So for regular Diksha, Krishna is God. For second initiation, Satyam Param Dhimahi. If you understand that Krishna is the Supreme, then you go beyond the Supreme and know that Krishna is Nandanaya Cha, Yasoda Nandan. So therefore it is most important that that we are celebrating the anniversary appearance of Rasa Bihari here. Yeah. But Rasa Bihari is always in Rasa. So Srila Prabhupada gave a very nice explanation of this in a Janmashtami lecture in London in August of 1971, like that. So some people will beg the question, how can Krishna, who you claim to be God, must take birth? Yeah. Then Srila Prabhupada said, oh, why God will not take birth? If he is Aja, Anadim, and if he is unborn and beginningless, that means he can also begin. So the same question, Prabhupada said, why God will not take birth? And then Srila Prabhupada said, if God is all powerful, why this power should not be denied to him, that he cannot take birth? Then Srila Prabhupada said, then the aja is Janma. The aja is Janma. The unborn can be born. He said it cannot be understood on the material platform. Doesn't make sense. Okay. Then Srila Prabhupada, very firm. He said, do you think that God is under the direction of any human being, that some philosophers think that God cannot take birth? Therefore God will be obliged, by his conception that Krishna cannot take birth? See? Therefore Krishna is beyond the philosophical conception or speculative ideas of others, including philosophers and scientists and so forth. This is very, very, very important. Yeah. Now, spiritually speaking, Srila Prabhupada used to say, Ananda Chinmaya Ras Pratibhavi Tabis Tabir Eva. What's the verse? Ya Eva Nija Rupataya Kalabi Goloka Eva Nivasati Akilatma Bhuta Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. So Srila Prabhupada very clearly tells us, and this is in Brahma Samhita, that Krishna and his entourage, is of the same spiritual potency. Ananda Chinmaya Ras. Krishna's mother, Krishna's father, Krishna's friends, Krishna's cowherd boyfriends, and the gopis and the cows are practically all expansions of Ananda Chinmaya Ras. In that sense. So therefore, that being the situation spiritually, in the spiritual world, there's no dead matter. Nothing is dead. Everything is conscious of service to Radha and Krishna. Everything is supremely conscious of service to Radha and Krishna. So there's one particular feature of this which we'll just touch on. Srila Prabhupada used to say that Krishna is also known as Ajita. I mean, nobody can conquer Krishna. However, a devotee, by one's strong devotional service, Prabhupada uses those words, and sincere attachment to Krishna, one can easily overpower, control, and practically take Krishna and put in your back pocket and walk around with him. And Srila Prabhupada gave the example, like Sanatana Goswami. He used to put Madan Mohan little bit on his neck. We're going now. Krishna says, I have no choice. If you want to go, I have to go with you. Like that. See? So, Srila Prabhupada also said that Lord Krishna, when he's called Lord, Bhagavan Krishna, Lord Krishna, is fear personified for everyone, including fear to fear personified itself. But Krishna, not Lord Krishna, but Krishna voluntarily, by his own internal will, unknowingly to him, because of the potency of Yoga Maya, he is afraid of the stick of Mother Yasoda. See? So, this indicates that the personification of fear is a servant in Krishna Leela, But the personification of fear is a master in the material world. See? So in order to actually enter into Krishna Lila, one has to be fearless in the material world, even within sadhana bhakti. Even within sadhana bhakti. Generally for practicing devotees, we fear that my position, my power will be taken away. See? But that will be taken away anyway at the time of death. See? See? It will be taken away. But generally devotees who are fearless, they understand and know and realize that service is unlimited and eternal. See? So if somebody takes away one particular service you have, and you'll do anything to keep that service, or do anything to fight that service, it just takes a few steps back and get out of Krishna's way. Don't become the doer and controller. See? Then only you will realize that service is eternal and unlimited in so many varieties of ways. But if one does not do that, then one is controlled by fear personified even in the material world, even within Krishna-related activities. That's what happens. See? So therefore, that fear personified is a servant in Krishna Lila, which enters the heart of Krishna to fear the stick of Mother Yasoda. See? To fear the stick of Mother Yasoda. So Mother Yasoda, when she lifted up the stick to practically beat Krishna, like that. And before she beat him, she insulted Krishna. He said, "You are a friend of the monkeys. You are just like them. They are restless, you are restless. You know? And I will beat you." And she lifted up the stick. Yeah. Then Krishna begged and he pleaded, "Mata, please don't beat me. I won't break this, your good part anymore. Please don't beat me. I won't steal anymore. But please, throw away the stick. Throw away the stick." So Krishna is the expert, tactful and diplomat. First he says, "Please don't beat me, give me mercy, but throw the stick." Because he doesn't fear Mother Yasoda. He fears the stick in Mother Yasoda's hand. See? And when the stick was thrown away onto the ground, then the stick lost its potency of fearfulness. See? But before that happened, Krishna told Mother Yasoda, "Okay, you thinking I'm an animal? I'm a pasu, animal? Like this? You think I'm like the monkeys? Fine. If I'm a monkey, I'm running away now and I'm going to the forest and I will be with them." See? Then Mother Yasoda became what? What's the word? Yeah, bhaya. She became fearful. See? So the consciousness of the stick to create fear in Krishna was transferred reverse into the consciousness of Mother Yasoda. Then the stick became a little lame. Thank God, I'm not going to beat Krishna. You throw me away. Everything is Ananda Chinmaya Ras, Pratibhavitabhis. The stick is also conscious, but it's a servant of the servant of Krishna, servant of Mother Yasoda, and Mother Yasoda is a servant of Krishna. Dasa, dasa, dasa. So when that happens, when Mother Yasoda became very worried that Krishna may run away to the forest, then she threw the stick down. So in Srimad Bhagavatam, in the 10th canto, in chapter 45, it's kind of explained, because that translation was by Srila Prabhupada's disciples, but it's explained nicely, that the stick in Mother Yasoda's hand was feeling, Mother Yasoda is about to beat Krishna with me. That means, me means the stick. But I don't want to beat Krishna. So the stick became fearful, and that fear entered Mother Yasoda's heart that Krishna will run away and be with the monkeys in the forest. It's the movement of transcendental exchange of consciousness. See? Yeah. So later on, the stick, which was down on the ground, was feeling, I was so near, now I am so far. I didn't get to touch Krishna. See? Because I was in the consciousness of Mother Yasoda to put fear in Krishna, but I don't want to make Krishna fearful. So the stick was thrown on the ground. And the stick was feeling like that. So later on, when Krishna transcended that age, from Komara age to Poganda, when he transcended that age, that stick was lying still there in separation from not touching Krishna. Right. And when he entered into Poganda age, Krishna carries a stick. Carries a stick. Which is not that same stick, because that was touched by Mother Yasoda. And the stick was lamenting, I don't deserve to serve Krishna. I wanted to hit him. But the stick is not blaming Mother Yasoda's consciousness that through the stick he wanted to beat Krishna. So this is the transcendental nature of the paraphernalia and the residence of even if somebody else tells you to do something, it's their fault. They don't find fault in the other person who told you to do that. It was me. It was me. The stick felt like that. So when Krishna was carrying a stick, when he entered from Kumara age to Poganda age, that's like from 5 and then to Poganda, which is up to 10. When he was carrying a stick. So that particular stick is a kind of relative of that stick on the ground. So when he carries this stick, then that stick on the ground, my cousin, is being held by Krishna's lotus palms. Very, very wonderful, spiritual world. Yeah. So, in Nectar of Devotion, Srila Prabhupada tells us, which is actually Srila Rupa Goswami, but translated by Srila Prabhupada, Bhakti Rasamrita into Nectar of Devotion, that one friend of Krishna addressed Krishna. He said, my dear lotus-eyed one, sometimes the friend of Krishna will not call him Shyam or Krishna, but they'll describe him. They'll describe him like that. Sometimes I have a very strong tendency, which is not nice in me also, that sometimes I may not call somebody Prabhu. I will say, hey Mukunda, like that, like Mukunda Madhava. But I may not call him Prabhu even in public. Like that. It's a form of like friendship, Yeah. Like that. Like sometimes one of my friends, Devaki Nandan Prabhu. Yeah. So you'll say, hey Brihad, my older name, I know you, that type of thing, So here again, the Saka, Krishna's friend, says, oh, my dear lotus-eyed one, doesn't say the name. When you were living in Gokula, you were always carrying a stick in your hand. Now that stick that you were carrying in your hand is now lying idle in the house of Mother Yasoda. In the courtyard of Mother Yasoda. And whenever Mother Yasoda sees that stick, she becomes motionless like that stick in separation from you. In separation from you. So therefore, when Krishna is Satyam Param Dhimahi, Krishna is that person who is Gopala, who is Govinda, who is Yasodanandan, who is Nandanandan. So this is the original, supreme, absolute truth. So therefore, Srila Prabhupada used to say that Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead. Srila Prabhupada did not say that the supreme personality of Godhead is Krishna. Krishna first is the supreme personality of Godhead. And therefore Prabhupada sometimes said, yes, and I gave you Krishna book for that purpose. So this is Satyam Param Dhimahi, the supreme, absolute truth. Now, there's a nice, wonderful devotee and very early disciple of Srila Prabhupada, practically joined in 1968 or so, 67, 68. Yeah. And Srila Prabhupada called him Makkanchor. Prabhu. Yeah. Oh no, Makkanlal Prabhu. Same. Yeah. Yeah. So Makkanlal Prabhu, several years ago, he entered into the sannyas ashram and his name became Bhakti Madhurya. Swami. Bhakti Madhurya Govinda Swami. He's a very elderly, yeah. And in one sense very innocent in many ways, but externally may be different, but very innocent and very elderly. Wonderful person. So he was recalling one time that there was a very innocent and naive lady disciple of Srila Prabhupada. She's very innocent, in those days. You can ask Srila Prabhupada directly a question, there's no problem, but in a very innocent way. Yeah. So she said, Srila Prabhupada, that you say in your translation in the Nectar of Devotion, and she mentioned to Srila Prabhupada that you say in your translation in Nectar Devotion that we should meditate on a resident of Vrindavan. And Prabhupada said, And then she continued. She said, Srila Prabhupada, I really like Nanda Maharaj. Prabhupada said, Then she said, Srila Prabhupada, but the gopis are also there, and especially Srimati Radharani. I really like Srimati Radharani. Prabhupada said, But then there's, Madhumangal, there's Subal, there's Stoka Krishna, Prabhupada said, And then she asked the question, Srila Prabhupada, but I'm not so clear who I should actually meditate on. Which resident of Vrindavan? And Srila Prabhupada's eyes opened like wide, wide. And he was like speaking, but not shouting, but very penetrating. Like that. He said, you should know that I am the resident of Vrindavan. This is who Srila Prabhupada is. Srila Prabhupada ki. You have any comments? Bhima Prabhu, you'd like to? Please, if you want to add, give us some words. You want to? Okay, you need microphone, pass it to the back.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Since you asked, Makanlal. Makanlal was the temple president when I joined in St. Louis in 1973.
Okay.
He joined the movement way back in, like you said, 67 or 68, very early. He was a hippie in Haight-Ashbury. He was living with Madhuvisa Prabhu in a basement somewhere in Haight-Ashbury. They both became devotees. And so when I joined the temple, he was the temple president. And the impressive thing about him is that he would always talk about Krishna. And he would relate everything to Krishna. And he even does that to this day.
Yes.
If you talk to him, it all comes back around to Krishna. So, by the association of Srila Prabhupada, and he's very Prabhupada conscious also.
Yes, yes.
So, that's the result, is that you think of Krishna and you want to do something to serve Krishna. So, that, when you mentioned it, that came to my mind.
Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna.
Hare. Anyone else, any senior devotees would like to contribute? Or we have a little time. We take a question maybe. If you have a question or comment. Bring the microphone. We need the microphone here, in the front. Give it to Ramrup.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much for the wonderful class. Srila Prabhupada, while speaking on this verse, Srila Prabhupada said, just see, here Kunti Maharani is giving the address of Krishna. Take him, take him.
Yes, wonderful. Anyone else would like? Yes, microphone there. Nimainita is back. Yes, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Maharaj, thank you. Maharaj, you were mentioning Ananda Chinmaya Rasa, that everything is conscious transcendentally. So recently I was reading this shloka, Shriya Kanta Kanta, and the last word comes is Chidanandam Jyoti Paramapi Aswadyam Apicha. So Srila Prabhupada and Srila Saraswati Thakur both, they translate like every living entity there is enjoyable and tasty. So after repeatedly thinking, I just could not figure out what it means to be enjoyable and tasty.
Yes.
Every living entity. If you could please.
Including the stick. Yeah. Nice. All right, we thank you for your patience with me and your wonderful association. And I believe the prasadam for all of you is being served in Vrindavan Hall by one nice family that has given you a wonderful feast today. Because tomorrow we're going to feast on fasting up to midnight or so. Shri Krishna Janmashtami Mahamotsava ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrinda ki, Nitai Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari Bol.